When you visit Pike Place Market, you'll see fish and flowers, produce, crafts, and quirky shops. But what makes the market, what it's really all about, is the people. Even though I've been going there since I was a kid, I still discover something new each time. I generally try to go during lunch so I can enjoy a fresh baked pierogi or a creamy Beecher's mac and cheese. Then I visit Market Spice and the Perennial Tea Room for some of my favorite bulk teas, pick up a loaf of sourdough at Three Girls Bakery, stock up on some fresh honey, and then maybe treat myself to a bouquet of flowers. My daughter loves to browse the comic shop and the used bookstore on the lower level, and then maybe fill a bag at Sweetie's Candy Shop. Pike Place Market is one of Seattle's most adored attractions, but it wasn't built for visitors. It was built by and for the people of Seattle. At the start, the market was a practical solution to an economic problem. You see, the price of food was just going up and up. People were feeling ripped off. It was the end of the 19th century, and Seattle was booming. The city had come back strong from the Great Fire of 1889 and had around 80,000 residents. People had to be fed, so farmers loaded their produce, meat, and dairy onto horse-drawn wagons and brought them into town from the islands and outlying farmlands. As the goods passed through the hands of middlemen, some ethical, some not, prices increased. Consumers complained about price gouging, but farmers were barely covering their costs. Seattle City Councilman Thomas Revelle heard the complaints, and he thought something had to be done. Revelle was an attorney, a newspaper editor, and a politician. He'd originally moved to Seattle to serve as a Methodist minister. Well, he was aware of an 1896 ordinance that allowed the city to designate tracts of land as public markets. With his prodding, the city council selected an area off of Pike Street and First Avenue, not far from the wholesale district, for an open-air market. On August 17th, 1907, Pike Place Market was born when about 10 farmers pulled up their wagons. The wholesalers were not happy. Shoppers were ecstatic. Councilman Revelle uttered a few words of dedication, and the first 50 consumers rushed in. The first farmer's wagon that they reached sold out of produce in minutes. The rest of the farmers went home with empty wagons before noon. Within a week, up to 70 wagons were gathering to sell directly to the public. Goodbye high prices, goodbye middlemen. On that first market day, another Seattleite was watching with great interest. Frank Goodwin had invested his gold rush fortune in downtown real estate, and his property just happened to be adjacent to the newly designated market. He figured the value of his land and his buildings would increase if farmers continued to draw crowds, so he immediately began work on the first permanent structures of the market. The main market arcade opened just 2.5 months later, in November of 1907. The market continued to expand bit by bit, accommodating not only daily deliveries of fresh produce and flowers, but also restaurants, butchers, delicatessens, and bakeries. Eventually, shops selling used clothing and household items, antiques, and imports found spaces in the market as well. Because of its location and the availability of low-priced goods, Pike Place Market also became home to social service agencies that helped low-income residents of the area. Well, the market was not without its struggles. While it was immensely popular with shoppers, wholesalers and retailers in other parts of the city didn't always appreciate the competition. Others wanted to get in on the action. In 1920, a group in Westlake, just up the hill, proposed building an underground market 4 blocks away on Fifth Avenue. As the city council began to seriously consider the Westlake proposal, the farmers of Pike Place organized for the first time to save their market. Ultimately, the city council voted in favor of keeping the original site. This wasn't the first time the market would be in serious peril. Fast forward to World War II. You might be aware of the forced internment of Japanese Americans on the West Coast that followed the bombing of Pearl Harbor. This not only had irreparable impact on scores of families, it wiped out a large number of family businesses serving the citizens of Seattle. It's been estimated that as many as 4/5 of the farmers selling produce at Pike Place Market were swept up in the internment orders. Imagine going out to do your shopping one day and finding your grocer had disappeared overnight. What's more, if interned families couldn't find a trusted non-Japanese American to tend their home or businesses, when the war was over, they came back to nothing. When you look at the market today, with its bustling stalls, crowds of shoppers, and selfie-snapping visitors, it's hard to imagine that in our lifetime it was slated to be bulldozed. In the early 60s, market buildings were aging and in need of attention. Parts were crumbling and unsafe. Some people felt that the market attracted the wrong element. In 1963, a proposal was put forth to demolish Pike Place Market in the name of urban renewal. In its place would be a hotel, an apartment building, office buildings, a parking garage, and a hockey arena. Today, it's hard for me to imagine Seattle without the market. Luckily, people who cared stepped forward to save it. One of these was well-known local architect Victor Steinbrueck. With the help of the University of Washington Press, Steinbrueck produced a book of his intimate pen and ink sketches depicting the market from every angle, with stories of the merchants and local characters. His book became a love letter to the market, making the case for keeping it and integrating it into Seattle's urban landscape. In it, he rightly predicted that the market would evolve to serve both modest income families who were able to get reasonably priced goods directly from the producer and lovers of good food seeking unique flavors and ingredients. The term foodie hadn't been invented yet, but he had a good idea of what was on the horizon. In the original introduction of his book, Steinbrueck wrote, "Part of the subtle charm of the market is the intrigue of exploration and the element of surprise as one moves through the various streets, lanes, passageways, ramps, and stairs." Well, luckily for Seattle, and for all of us, the market was saved. A group called Friends of the Market gathered 53,000 citizen signatures. It's now a 9-acre historic preservation zone, which was established by voter initiative in 1971. Also in 1971, a humble coffee shop opened across from the market's north arcade. Today, that shop welcomes pilgrims from around the world. In fact, whenever I have visitors from Japan, it's one of the must-see locations on their itinerary. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's called Starbucks. When you walk the market, you'll be taken in by the sights, the sounds, and the hubbub of activity. You won't be the first person to want to take pictures of colorful vegetable displays or googly-eyed fish. But the true joy of the market is meeting the farmers and the vendors. In fact, from the very beginning, the market's motto was, "Meet the producer." Last time I was there, I learned how Moon Valley Organics creates their deliciously scented healing lotions, tasted 5 varieties of apple cider, and spoke to an artist about her block-printed coasters and dish towels. So, when you're there, just stop a moment. Find out what's fresh, what's in season, and where it was made. Try some samples. Take it all in. And then, go ahead and take that selfie in front of the iconic market clock.